Howdy, Tommy from Tanknicians here. Today I want to talk to you about quarantine in general and also break down our process that we use here to treat all of our fish. Fish quarantine is the process of removing disease-causing organisms from the fish before you put them in your display tank so that you don't infect the entire tank and you're introducing healthy fish. Fish disease is incredibly common, and best practice is to assume that every fish has every disease and treat accordingly. See, wholesalers aren't quarantining their fish. Wholesalers are treating their fish with therapeutic levels of antiparasitics which suppress diseases and make it so that the fish aren't showing what they're infected with. This doesn't mean that the fish is disease-free, all because it looks healthy. We've spent the better part of 2 years trialing this method, which is heavily derived from Bobby on Humble Fish Forum. Check his YouTube out, it's in the description after watching this video. These two treatment protocols are what we use to treat virtually every fish that comes in through our store. So for Anthias Angelfish and wrasses, we use treatment protocol A. Treatment protocol A starts with copper at 1.0, and then on day 2, we bring it up to 2.0. So when you're dosing copper, you want to do a half dose the first day and then bring it up to therapeutic the second day, and then leave it at therapeutic for the rest of the treatment. Now, because Anthias angelfish and wrasses are often copper sensitive, we don't go to a full 2.2 or 2.5 therapeutic level for treatment, and this is why we do a longer copper on these fish. So every few days, we test the copper level to verify that it's still at 2.0 or slightly higher. If it goes below that, we have to restart the treatment. On day 1, we're also adding metronidazole. Metronidazole is to treat specifically uronema. So a lot of social fish, uronema is very common on them. And metronidazole needs to be dosed every other day. And the first 2 doses are lower than the full therapeutic. So by day 5, we have full therapeutic metronidazole, and then we dose that a total of 5 more times before we do the tank transfer. The copper and the metronidazole are for external ciliates. And now to treat internal worms, we're also feeding fendenbendazole. And then we will do praziquantel to treat external flukes, which are a type of flatworm. So on day 10, we're dosing with praziquantel, full strength, and that gives us plenty of time for day 15 when we do our tank transfer. Tank transfer is when you take the fish out of the treatment tank that they're in and you move them to a new sterile treatment tank. And so if you don't have a setup like ours with sterilizable tanks, you need to make sure that that new tank is at least 10 feet away from the old tank, preferably in a different room. You also have to be really careful when you're doing the tank transfer that you're not transferring any water from the old tank into the new tank. And the reason why you have to do the tank transfer is that at a short treatment period, like what we're doing here, there's likely to be viable parasites in the water or on the ground, on the substrate in the aquarium. And so you move them to a new aquarium and effectively you've removed all those parasites that were in the water and in the filter and on the substrate. Treatment protocol F is the treatment that we use for basically every other fish, and it uses chloroquine phosphate. Chloroquine phosphate is an amazing anti-parasitic. It has very little effect on the fish as opposed to copper, which can be quite toxic, so long as the fish aren't chloroquine phosphate intolerant. So the whole reason why we have TPA is because your angelfish, your Anthias, your wrasses, your blue hippotangs, there's a list of fish that are CP intolerant that you can find on the Humble Fish Forum. But for the fish that can't be treated with CP, we use copper. For everything else, we use chloroquine phosphate. Now our dosage, we dose at 40 milligrams per gallon on the first day, and then every day after that they get a 10th dose, so 4 milligrams per gallon. This is because the chloroquine phosphate is going to degrade in an aquarium with biological filtration. On day 8, we're going to do a praziquantel treatment as well, because chloroquine phosphate does not treat for flukes in all cases. And then on day 12, we're going to do a sterile tank transfer and then another praziquantel treatment just to be sure that the flukes are gone. By day 18, we do a 25% water change. This is because of the praziquantel, and then they go into observation. After the 2-week medication-free observation period, you can be reasonably assured that your fish are disease-free in a way that your typical local fish store just running therapeutic antiparasitics cannot. Many hobbyists choose to just do a medication-free observation, or even more commonly, go to a local fish store and try to pick healthy-looking fish, but here's the problem with that. These frostfin cardinals look great. Clear fins, clear eyes, good appetite, they're maintaining buoyancy in the water column, they're not lethargic, but once they were removed from their initial quarantine and placed into an observation tank, 3 days later they look like this. The quarantine had failed, and if they had gone straight into a display, it would have been disastrous. If you're taking a fish from the fish store and introducing it straight into your aquarium without any medication or treatment or observation, you're placing a significant risk that you could be introducing a dangerous disease to your aquarium. If you think it's difficult to quarantine, imagine how hard it is to catch all the fish out of the aquarium once they're sick and then set up an impromptu quarantine tank to treat them all while you're simultaneously running your display tank that now doesn't have any fish in it at all. It's a large hassle that can be totally avoided by quarantine. If you're local to the Palm Beaches and you'd like to learn more about quarantine, or you'd like to purchase fish and corals that are already quarantined so that you don't have to do it, stop by. You can find all of our contact information in the description, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned for future videos on quarantine. The next one will be quarantine myth busting. Chris is going to be in this one. He's the cameraman for this one. Say hi to Chris. His channel's also in the description.